As I say, this is not a job. It's more than a vocation. It's a must-be, something to share. It's the only way you can do it today. If you have knowledge, you've got to share it. You've got to get it out there and try and at least get through to the people who are looking for answers. You might not bring them all the way up to scratch, but you can start the process for them, hopefully, because we're going through the greatest changes in history, really in history, into a scientific type of world dictatorship, where everything, we've all been studied, all communities, all groups, all ethnic groups, all peoples across the planet have been studied so meticulously well for an awful long time, and so many experiments have been done upon the same peoples and data collected to see how they can be managed to the ultimate extreme with the ultimate authority. And we're going through that phase right now. Most folk haven't got a clue. They think that wars just pop up out of nowhere. They think that everything they see on TV is real. They have no idea how special security, secret intelligence services work. No idea at all that they're all working together, that they do set off terrorist attacks here, there, and everywhere as preludes for war and invasion, because it's geopolitics. You've got to get a purpose, a pretense for invading countries, and you use geopolitics. Very old technique. Every country's done it, especially the big empire countries. Britain was very good at it for an awful long time, and the US has taken over from Britain. And everyone's involved at the top, because a long time ago they decided which countries would lead the New World Order into the amalgamation. And to the public, to us at the bottom, we must think it's all happening quite naturally. And we always say, well, what else can they do? They have to go the next step. They have to bring in a common currency because the banks are failing. And there's always an excuse that's palatable, at least palatable, to most of the general public, who don't notice much, as long as they can go out and buy, and buy, and buy, and play, and play, and play. We'll be back with more after this break. Hi, I am Alan Watt, and this is Cutting Through the Matrix. Just mentioning how we're so well understood. Really, we're looked upon as a collective. And we, down below, we see ourselves as individuals. At least we think we're individuals, although most folk really are doing what everyone else is doing. They dress like everyone else too, according to their age group and to the current fashions and their income brackets and all that kind of stuff. And even the topics of conversation are given to them for every group. You'll find that the cocktail party types, the bureaucrats, where they go and chat, they always stand and chat, and mingle, what they mingle and sip their wine. You'll find they always simply talk about the latest books and paperbacks are out there by different philosophers or people who are into techniques of governing. And they love to brandish the names about between each other to show they're up in their class with what's going on. And if you don't know the name of a particular guy or a quote, you're just kind of out there, you're kind of strange. And every class is governed in the same way. And at the bottom, you'll see the youngsters with their baggy pants, of course made popular by Madison Avenue and the fashion designers and much music, thinking that somehow it's their generation and what they sing and what they copy and repeat is really from themselves. They really believe that. And every generation before them thought the same thing too. We're so well understood because it's all to do with obedience. Obedience to a group, even your own peer group at school, that's obedience to the group. And it's a form of natural systems of getting along with each other. And governments count on that. That's why we take and bear so much from governments. And it's to do with authority as well, obeying authority. In the old days, in ancient times, you would obey the tribal chief, and he would be the guy who would dish out punishments and fines or whatever else there was to dish out in those days, and keep everyone in line, but with the consent of the governed. And he was easy to overthrow if he overstepped his mark or got big boots and wanted to get his family to take over and have you worship him. It was much easier to get rid of one guy and a couple of his men around him than it is to today. That's why governments today have massive armies behind them. It's not really to protect the country, it's to protect the system that they rule over for themselves. That's the reality of governments. And this is discussed in very, very high quarters, the big ivory towers where the think tanks sit and look down upon us all. It's all to do with perception management. It's a word that's now used in place of propaganda. And Bernays went into the art of propaganda. He liked the word propaganda. He thought it was a nice, clean word. But of course, because it was used so much to alter perceptions, especially during times of war, to get people into the military and to go off and get killed off in droves, then it got a bad name, a bad rep, especially after World War I, when they found that the guys like Bernays had dreamed up the systems to motivate young men into the military, and also that all the reasons for going in, especially for America, were all lies in the first place. That's how it's done. It's always lies, you see. It doesn't matter after the event, they can come out and admit the lies. They don't really care. And generally by that time, another generation's growing up, and they're so involved in what's happening in their lifetimes, it's like ancient history. Who cares? That's how we've always been ruled. But perception is so important. As I say, now they call them management perception. And that's the guys you call in when you want to sell a product. They're not selling the product, they're giving the customers a perception of something that's unreal, not the product itself. I mean, when you think of spending millions of dollars for, say, a particular toothpaste, it's just a toothpaste. That's all it is. All toothpastes are much the same. They've got sodium bicarbonate in them, some kind of cream or other, and then they add all that fluoride stuff to make you dumb and stupid. And it works. The advertising works on the public because everyone who brushes their teeth with this stuff is so happy on television. So happy that they're overjoyed because they've got this toothpaste, you see. It works so well. And it works with everything else too. If you notice with the car ads that they're flooding the market with right now, in fact, there's not one ad will tell you what its fuel consumption actually is, or how long the transmission guarantee is for, or anything that counts. What they give you is a computer-generated road with no traffic on it, long and winding, and big hills on the other side, and the only car on the road is the one that you're going to buy, that one there. They sell you a fantasy, a happy fantasy of escapism. You see? So it's perception management, and all governments have been using the art of perception management for an awful, awful, awful long time. When governments want to do something like invade a country, they take maybe a year, 2 years sometimes to plan it all. Because nothing happens ever spontaneously. Often they're planned years ahead to do with geopolitical strategy. And they'll do maybe, 20 years' time, we want to take this country out. Winston Churchill, after they divided up the Middle East, an awful long time ago with Britain in its war capacity, after World War I, and they drew lines on the maps and says, you're now this country and you're now that country. And he said at the time, he says, eventually the oil to the north of Iraq will be so important we will have to go to war over it. That was before World War II. And folk don't know, so they go along with the current reasons are given, although all the botched jobs, they're kind of botched, they kind of work in a sense. The tax on the tower, all the ridiculous excuses we got, the floating down passport that eventually denied ever existed, but it was a big propaganda piece at the time. All this stuff is just like a Hollywood movie, just like Wag the Dog, fantastic movie to see, fantastic movie. When they went into Bosnia, they actually followed the script of Wag the Dog right down to the little girl running through the village that was all afire with her headscarf on, with a little dog in her arm. That was in Wag the Dog, which was released a year before they went into Bosnia. Incredible stuff. Then they get away with it, and they laugh up their sleeves. They really do. Now, Remember what I've mentioned before, that some of the top players like Bernard Baruch and others have said that whatever happens in government and in politics, whatever they tell the public, there's always a good reason for how they present it to the public, a good reason. And whether it's a tax increase or a war or anything else, they always give you what seems to be a good reason. And he said, then there's the real reason. The public are never allowed in to the real reason. Jumping from there, let's go back to Karl Marx and Abraham Lincoln. What did they have in common? They actually wrote to each other. That's what they had in common. And there's Pentagon Papers and the records there where Marx actually telegraphed Lincoln, congratulating him on keeping, actually creating a centralized government, which was a prime plank of the Communist Manifesto, centralization of government. Special security, secret intelligence services work, no idea at all that they're all working together, that they do set off terrorist attacks here, there, and everywhere as preludes for war and invasion, because it's geopolitics. Ethnic groups, all peoples across the planet have been studied so meticulously well for an awful long time, and so many experiments have been done upon the same peoples and data collected to see how they can be managed to the ultimate, all the way up to scratch. They can start the process for them, hopefully, because we're going through the greatest changes in history, really in history, into a scientific type of world dictatorship, where everything, we've all been studied, all communities, all groups, all. As I say, this is not a job, it's more than a vocation, it's a must-be, something to share. It's the only way you can do it today. If you have knowledge, you've got to share it, you've got to get it out there and try and at least get through to the people who are looking for answers. You might not bring them all stream with the ultimate authority. And we're going through that phase right now. Most folk haven't got a clue. They think that wars just pop up out of nowhere. They think that everything they see on TV is real. They have no idea how